Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Cardinals Plus. I'm Corey Miller.
And I'm Ahmad Hicks.
We are really excited, as I'm sure everybody is, because opening day is finally here. We're going to see actual baseball instead of a year ago when Ahmad and I were playing MLB The Show and putting highlights on TV. So that's going to be fun, although people seem to like those, so maybe we'll bring them back eventually. In this episode, we're going to get you up to speed, everything on opening day. We got a special guest appearance by someone you might recognize, Frank Cusumano from Channel 5.
Just maybe.
And we're going to throw out some of our own projections for this season. And let's dive right into it. I almost forgot, this is also going to be our podcast this week on the Sports Plus podcast. So if you're listening there, hello there as well. Let's dive in with leading off.
Yeah, so big show today. Lots to talk about heading into the season. So first on tap, John Nogowski. Not many people expecting him to crack the lineup to begin the season, but Corey, he's here. What do you expect from him?
Well, I mean, talking about guys who's on and who's off, Nogowski is the one that sticks out the most, like you just said. The talk of the spring. I mean, he's my kind of baseball player. I like baseball players that don't look like baseball players. He kind of fits that mold, and we haven't really had a guy like that since Matt Adams. So big guy hit 333 OPS of 992. I love these spring training stories. They don't always work out with making the team, but he forced the Cardinals' hand, and you love to see it. And I mean, he's not going to get many starts because obviously Paul Goldschmidt is your first baseman, and you have better defensive outfielders, so he's not going to get the first crack out there. But I'm excited to see him come up and get some pitch hit situations and a start or two here or there, especially if some guys in the outfield start faltering. He might get a shot.
9 walks and 33 at-bats during spring training. I mean, you have to love seeing stuff like that. So what about Edmundo Sosa? He's not having the best of spring, 5 for 25, but he's a utility guy. He can go everywhere.
Yeah, we know what the starting lineup's going to be and who the big players are. And guys like Nogowski, Sosa rounding out the roster. Wasn't always certain they were going to be there. Sosa for sure. I mean, they've always liked him. He's been a top prospect. His glove, it might be, other than Nolan Arenado, might be the best in the Cardinals organization. So they like him there as a backup for Paul DeJong. If they want to play Tommy Edman at the same time, Tommy Edman not traditionally a shortstop. So I think they felt like they had to have a guy at short, and it just happened to be Sosa. I don't think he's going to play very much, and I think he's really only going to be there to back up Paul DeJong when he needs a day off. And we've seen he does need a day off because I think 2 years ago they ran that guy ragged, and it really affected him. So he could be an important player this year.
Now, you talk about players who maybe or may not be, who maybe will, let me rephrase that, may or may not be getting a lot of playing time. Let's talk about the outfielders. We know Dylan Carlson is a lock out there as well as Tyler O'Neill. But what about these other guys? Justin Williams, Austin Dean, what do you think? What do you expect to see from them?
So our two last guys, we got 3 last guys we're talking about who just squeaked onto the roster, Justin Williams and Austin Dean. And listen, I love Justin Williams. I am very excited, and I'm glad he's getting a chance to start because there was a while when he was like the 6th or 7th outfielder, and I was afraid we are going to have a Randy Arozarena situation where they packaged him in a trade and then he went and raked elsewhere. So I think he's going to get the first shot in right over Austin Dean, although they love Austin Dean. I think Mike Schilt really likes Austin Dean. He's played a lot. But Justin Williams got that left-handed bat. Harrison Bader's going to be out at least a month. And there's going to be a true chance, I think, for Williams to cement a spot there and Bader just not hit it when he comes back. Because if Williams hits and the other 2 guys perform like they did in spring and like we think they can, I mean, that's your outfield right there. And it's going to be tough to rationalize, even though Mike Schilt loves Harrison Bader too. It's going to be tough to rationalize getting him back in the lineup if those guys are hitting.
If Williams can flash the leather out there and then show off that power that he has, I think, like you said, it'll be very, very hard for Harrison to crack the lineup. How surprised were you that Jake Woodford got the last bullpen spot over Cody Whitley?
Well, he wouldn't have made the team if it wasn't for the injuries we're going to talk about here in a little bit to a couple of pitchers. But, I mean, he is a starter. It's what he's been his whole career, so they'll have to work him out of the bullpen here just because he's the best guy. I thought Cody Whitley would get the spot over Woodford if I had to guess at the beginning of spring training, but they didn't plan on using Jake Woodford as much as they did last year, but he got some experience. He'll probably be one of those last guys they call on, and get moved up and down as you see guys do throughout the year. So I thought it'd be Cody Whitley, but Woodford gets a shot.
Well, we just talked a lot about the outfield. Let's circle back to that. Lane Thomas, this was a guy that I was thinking we could pencil in on the roster, and he'll be one of those fill-in guys, to replace Harrison Bader or give Dylan Carlson a break on, on a very hot, humid summer day in St. Louis. But he's not on the team. How long should we expect that? Do you think he's going to be in AAA for a while, or do you think, he'll come up soon?
Yeah, talking about guys now that were left off the roster, Lane Thomas, I really couldn't believe that they opted for Williams and Dean over Thomas after Harrison Bader got hurt, because the thought was Bader and Thomas were the two competing most closely for the center field spot, and there was an outside chance Thomas could end up with that starting spot in center field. Didn't happen at all. He had 216 OPS of 520, but I mean, that's not much worse than some other guys did. I think it's really telling. They're moving Dylan Carlson to center before they gave Thomas that shot, which everybody thought Thomas is next in line for center field after Harrison Bader. So I really don't know what Lane Thomas's future with the Cardinals is right now, because I'm just them completely leaving him off the roster throws everything into a mess that I don't think anybody predicted.
I think it's only a matter of time before we see him back in the big leagues. But I guess that's something we'll be keeping a close eye on. Something else we'll be keeping a close eye on. KK Kim, Miles Michaelis. This is something the Cardinals were supposed to have a dominant starting five rotation where that was going to be the strength of their team. Now we're looking at it as, okay, what do? Daniel Ponce de Leon, he comes in. John Gant, they come in. But are these guys that can be there for the long haul, Corey? Or do you think the Cardinals are going to be struggling without those two?
Well, I was worried about KK coming into this. Well, I was worried about both these guys just from an injury perspective. Michael is coming back from injury. Kim was great last year, but it wasn't a full season. And I thought that might rear its head later in the year, but it hit him right off the bat. I think they feel pretty good about Kim, though, that he's not going to miss that much time. And they've got a number of off days in this first month, so they can maybe work around his spot in the rotation. So, I mean, Gant and Ponce are going to be on this team no matter what. Even when those guys come back, they're going to get moved to the bullpen. I'm a huge Daniel Ponce de Leon guy. I'd like Frank says in our upcoming interview, I'd like to see him go 6 innings every once in a while instead of 4 or 3. But he's nasty. I mean, the Cardinals' depth in their pitching has been their hallmark for the last, 15 years or so. And they're leaning on that heavy right now, more heavy than they were hoping to. But they know how to do it. They've got guys there. They're missing Austin Gomber. I think they'll be okay with that, though, considering who they got back from the Rockies in that trade. But yeah, it's going to be. I'm glad Gant and Ponce are getting shots here, at least off the top, because they've been starters. They started as starters, and now they're going to get at least a kind of a look. So it'll be exciting.
They'll have an opportunity for sure, and you want to hope they capitalize this moment. You have another topic that you think that we need to talk about here, Matt Carpenter. How about you lead us off with that one?
Yeah, we're going to look. I mean, we're going to talk about a topic that's going to draw the most ire from fans. We just talked about the last guy's on and off the roster. Now we're talking about a guy who's definitely on the roster, and Cardinals fans are just going to get used to him because he's going to be there. Matt Carpenter. He hit. Everybody knows by now, probably the numbers by heart. 054, 2 for 37 in the spring, and he had an OPS of 640 last year. So it's been a regression for a while now. So it's not like this is a new thing, which everybody is well aware of and makes a constant note of in our Facebook comments on any Cardinal story we post. This is the last year of his contract. I think he's due just over $18 million. He's not going to start, at least to start the year. So Cardinals fans can at least be happy there. Tommy Edman's going to start at second base, Arenado at third. But Ahmad, this guy's going to get his chances.
He is. And I think he just has to accept his role. And I think that's something that we saw in their last spring training game when he came in the game and he got a hit and he got a standing ovation from all of his teammates. And I think that's something that he has to be okay with. He has to look at the numbers and realize that he's not hitting it into opposite field like he once used to be able to. And that's I wouldn't say that's okay because it's not okay, but that's why he's no longer starting. So I think he just has to come in the game, get those couple of ABs and be very successful, and then just take it from there. He has to accept, though, that his starting days are probably over. I mean, if we're being honest, the arm strength from the third base bag is not that strong to be over there. So second base suits him, but if you can't hit, I mean, you can't play. I mean, so that's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah, barring injury, pinch hit and spelling Arenado, but I looked it up. When Arenado's healthy, he's going to play 150 games. He did it like 4 years in a row. So that's not much wiggle room for Matt Carpenter to start at third base. And it's not going to be, I don't foresee a platoon situation with Tommy Edman unless something significant happens. My thing is, I'll start to get really worried about, well, not worried, but it might get really awkward if they get into the season and you get late in games and you've got right-handed hitters. If Austin Dean and John Nagowski are taking pinch hit appearances against righties, then that will signal something that they don't even trust Matt Carpenter to go take a pinch hitting appearance as a left-handed batter against a right-handed pitcher. That could
and you
be
don't
really
have Yeah, and you don't have at-bats to waste. And if you know he's going to go up there and hit it right to the second baseman or the right fielder, you really don't want to put him in. But we're just hopeful that it won't be that way. He said he worked a lot on his exit velo this offseason and, trying to get stronger. So we'll just hope that he's able to put that into use when the season rolls around here starting tomorrow.
So we're going to dive more into the Yadi Waino connection next week because Adam Wainwright is starting the Cardinals home opener. But the one thing Yadi related I'll mention before the season starts, he's going to start his 17th opening day in a row, which is the most by any catcher for one team in history. Did you see him lifting weights after the last spring training game? He still had his dirty pants on with dirt on them and his batting gloves in his back pocket. Like right after the last spring training game, he's in there pumping like a ton of iron. This guy's nuts.
Why do you think he's still around? That's why he's still around. He's showing everyone what it takes. Waino's showing everyone what it takes because you can't go there and make it and play this long by just playing the game, going home, eating some good food, having a glass of wine, and then showing up the next day and working out. You got to be putting in work all day when no one's watching, even after games. That's one of the most important times to get a lift in. So, I mean, this guy's just showing us why he's one of the greatest of all time.
Let's dive into the guy that's going to start the actual opener on the road against Cincinnati on Thursday. Jack Flaherty might be the key, I think, to the entire team. Jack Flaherty doesn't have a good year. The Cardinals very well could not have a good year, especially with some pitching injuries off the top. They need that horse. He was not great in 2020. He knows it. He said it a couple times. 4.91 ERA, 5.40 ERA in the spring too. He's got to be better. Ahmad, how do you see Flaherty heading into this year?
Not thinking about it. What's his slogan? Don't think. Just go in there and just be lights out. Yeah, I think that's what you're going to see. You've had a guy, one that had all his starts, pretty much disrupted what it seemed like last year during the pandemic when they had to play all those games, and he never was able to find his groove. But you had a guy that showed flash in the playoffs versus the Padres. Like, hey, this is the guy we want. The ace that the Cardinals need at the top of the rotation. He's had all that, the outside noise, oh, he doesn't deserve this much money. Oh, he's too vocal about this. Maybe he should just be quiet and play baseball. I think this is the year where he's going to block all that out. He's motivated from the arbitration hearings, and he's going to go out there and he's going to lead the Cardinals. And like you said, if he doesn't lead the Cardinals and have 15 plus wins, well, the Cardinals aren't going to be successful. So they only go as far as their strongest horse goes. And I think he'll go really far this year.
Here's a bit of what Jack had to say before he takes the mound on opening day in Cincinnati.
I mean, it's going to be fun to have a full, whole 162 to go out and compete with these guys. In terms of opening day, I think every start that we take, whether it's in spring training or whether it's, the last game of the season, takes on the same importance. So there's no added importance on it being opening day. And it's not to, talk down the fact of, it's cool to be starting on opening day, but every start that we take on is the same importance. It we give the same level of commitment to it and preparation and everything. So from start one of spring training to the last start we get in the season, each one takes on the same amount of prep and importance.
All right, our first guest of what we're going to call our Cardinals Plus guest of the week right now until we think of a better name. The one and only Frank Cusumano. Of course, our first guest on Cardinals Plus had to be Frank. Going to get some insights before the Cardinals kick off this season. Frank, let's pick your brain here. First of all, just how honored are you that you're our first guest?
Right.
Yeah, it's, outside of the birth of my kids, this is probably the greatest day of my life.
Well, we're just excited to have you. And so we want to jump right into it. Who in your mind is the single most important player on this Cardinals team this year?
It's a great question. I think I lean towards Paul DeJong because there's really not a shortstop in the organization that you can rely on. There's not a backup. And if Paul DeJong gives you that all-star caliber performance, which he once did when he had the 30 home run season, and he plays steady defense, you're really going to be good. I mean, you're just not certain after Arenado and after Goldschmidt in the lineup who's going to hit. But if you have DeJong as a thumper in that 4, 5, or 6 slot, you're going to be in decent shape. But there's certainly a lot of concern because he didn't hit last year. He hasn't hit in the spring. So I think that in terms of most important or like the key to the season, he'd be my guy.
So let's talk about the guy that'll probably turn a lot of double plays with him, and that's Nolan Arenado. It seems like a match made in heaven right now for the Cardinals and their fan base. It seems like a McGuire situation. For you, what sticks out most about him so far?
I think his zest for the game. I think, sometimes with superstars, they bring a bad vibe to the clubhouse, and there have been some in recent Cardinal history that I won't name right now, but this guy just he's the equivalent of a gym rat. He loves everything about it. He loves the tradition. I mean, I remember talking to Andy Van Slyke about this. He played against Scott Van Slyke when Scott was with the Dodgers, and he looked up Andy because Andy was a coach in the league, and then he had a long conversation with Andy talking about how do you become a star in this league, and picked his brain. I mean, I just love a guy that God blessed with all this talent, but then also acts like he's a rookie still trying to make the team. That's what we're gonna fall in love with this guy about.
Well, what are you most excited to see this year from him?
Well, I really want to see that if he's as good as Scott Rowland defensively, because let's face it, we all haven't seen many Colorado Rockies games. We see when they play against the Cardinals. I don't watch the Rockies when they're not playing the Cardinals. All I've seen is the highlights. So if he is where Scott Rowland was defensively, it's going to be the best 6 or 7 years we've had in a long time.
Well, let's talk about the outfield now, because that's been an endless debate for what seems like forever. By season's end, who do you think is manning the outfield?
Well, I think Dylan Carlson, and I love the fact that they've basically said, Dylan, there are no other options. It's your spot to lose. We're going to hit you high up in the order, maybe 2, maybe 4 or 5. And it's your job. Let's have a young superstar blossom before our very eyes in St. Louis. It's been a long time for that. I think Tyler O'Neill at the end of the year is going to be at 22 home runs, hopefully around an 800 OPS. The third one is the real interesting question. I don't know. I'm not certain. The Nogowski thing is interesting. What if Nogowski turns into, what about the Yankee slugger that we used to have here in St. Louis?
Luke Voigt.
Yeah. What if he turns into Luke Voigt? Some like one tool guy, but that one tool is off the charts and he hits 25 home runs.
Alan Craig.
I don't know. Justin Williams has some tools, and I like Justin Williams too, and he's a left-handed bat. I think it's going to be one of those two guys who's going to have to step up.
Okay, let's talk about the bullpen now. Alex Reyes, the Cardinals have already said they're going to cap his innings. How would you like to see Alex Reyes used this year?
Well, I thought at the beginning of spring training, I'd like to see him as a starter. But I think they can get by with Gant and Ponce until KK and Michaelis are healthy. So you're going to have, you have a bunch of starters who are not going to go deep into games, let's face it. So we'll probably be seeing Alex Reyes in that, 5 through 8 inning role. And then you have, of course, the hammer at the end of the game in Jordan Hicks.
Now, what about Matt Carpenter? He's been struggling as of late. We all know he cannot find his swing ever since they put the shift on him. What point do you think does manager Mike Schill and president of baseball operations John Mozeliak just have to kind of make a decision about him and kind of move on, you think?
I don't think that's near, because it's $18.5 million and no team will take him. You couldn't trade him and say, we'll take $10 million, because no team wants to pay Matt Carpenter $8 million. I think the one interesting with Carpenter is how stubborn he's going to be. You know, when he came up into the league and he had 55 doubles and those great on-base percentages, he hit the ball to left field. I'm not saying he was Wade Boggs or Tony Gwynn. I am saying that guy went the other way as well as anybody we've seen in St. Louis. So I wonder if he finally gets to a point where, look, the shift and the way I've hit, it's not working. Maybe I can go to left field. I saw, despite the fact he only had 2 hits in the spring, that there were some encouraging signs, you know, when he hit the ball to right field. But I want to see Matt Carpenter hit the ball to left field. But I don't know what type of role he's going to play. I mean, at the end of the game in Cincinnati, he's not going to hit against Amir Garrett. At the end of the game against Milwaukee, he's not going to hit against Josh Hader. So I just wonder how many at-bats Matt Carpenter is going to get. I'm pulling for the guy because he's been a good Cardinal.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that for a long time this season. Final question that we have for you before we get to our quick hits. If there's one thing you think will hinder the Cardinals' chances at winning a World Series title this year, what will it be?
Well, I think, you know, the starting staff, because let's face it, you know, when spring training began, we were all pretty high on this staff. And we thought, you know, KK was unhittable. The last time we saw Mike was healthy, he was really good. And then you have those two as question marks. So look, they're going to be a better offensive team, but they're not going to outslug the Padres or the Dodgers. They're going to have to, you know, alternative programming, which is outpitch people. So this starting staff is going to have to be really good. I really like Ponce de Leon. I really like him more if he could pitch into the 7th inning. I really like John Gant, but I've never seen him as a starting pitcher. So that's one of the biggest keys is the depth of the starting staff. I feel good about Carlos and Waino and of course Jack Flaherty.
Okay, and now Corey has some good stuff for us.
Well, we're gonna riff off Frank Cusumano original here, hit and run, but we're gonna call it quick hits here, not to trample on Frank's creation there. No hedging allowed, Frank, as you like to say, but you can expand a little more than a hit and run on these if you want. First of all, who was your favorite Cardinal growing up and why?
Probably Lou Brock. I went to camp with his daughter, Wanda, and one day at summer camp, I brought my glove to Wanda, and I said, could you have your dad sign it? And he signed this beautiful autograph, and I was hooked on Lou Brock. And, you know, the fact that he stole 900 bases and got 3,000 hits helped a lot, too, and was one of the greatest World Series performers of all time.
Now, how big of a Ted Simmons fan were you? I know you're pretty big with that hair and everything, right?
Yeah, he's a close second. Yeah, he was cool. He was awfully neat. Yeah.
What's your favorite Cardinal moment you've gotten to see in person, either working in TV or before that?
I think for like 3 hours of sustained intensity and ferocity, I think it's Game 5 of the NLDS in 2011. That was the Carpenter Halladay 1-0 game, because if you're a baseball purist, you love those pitching matchups. And, you know, it's easy to say Game 6, 2011. That was, you know, without question the most exciting. But I'm telling you, being up close and personal in Philly to see that thing, that was something I'll never forget.
Who's the one Cardinal you wish you could have been for a day?
Ooh. I think Jim Edmonds. You know, there's no doubt that Albert Pujols was the greatest Cardinal I ever saw, but Edmonds, I think, was the most electrifying because he could make the catch, he could make the throw, and then hit the walk-off homer. To have Edmonds' hand-eye coordination and power, yeah, that's a pretty good skill set.
Have you ever gotten into it with a Cardinals manager before, and what's that like?
Oh, La Russa would get on me, and I would ask him a question and I didn't like the answer. And then I'd ask him the same question. And he said to me once, you know, you can keep asking the same question. I'm going to keep giving you the same answer. Figure it out, Frank. I'm trying to think what else. He used to find me at the beginning of spring training because I wore shorts and my legs were too white. He said some of the cruelest things ever to me, but I absolutely love the guy.
Who's your favorite Cardinal you've ever gotten to interview? Who was the best soundbite? Who had the most fun? Who was the most fun to interview?
Well, Wainwright is the best interview. I mean, everybody else fights for second. But a guy who I really enjoyed personally, we had a great relationship with, was Tommy Pham. Because Tommy Pham was always going to say something kind of combative, and sometimes it was not politically correct, and sometimes he would rip management. But man, every time I walked to his locker room, it was I knew I was going to get something good. And I really enjoyed him personally too. We had a good time going back and forth.
You've covered a lot of Cardinals champagne celebrations over the years. Which team, if you can remember, was maybe the rowdiest after a clinching win?
I think 2006, and Jeff Weaver was nuts. And I can still remember like having a sport code ruin. They were killing the media with the stuff. And it was just such an unlikely season where they were a game above 500. They get hot and Waino's the closer. And that was just the craziest thing. And they just partied like rock stars that night. I remember that one well.
I'm going to take a Frank Cusumano special here. One baseball player to get a hit to save the world from communism. Who do you take?
Well, I take Tony Gwynn.
I've heard you ask this question a million times, so I'm interested here.
Yeah, I mean, I have to take Tony Gwynn. We're talking not a home run, but a nice base hit to left field where he goes the other way. Yeah, it's got to be Tony.
That's a good one. Ahmad's got an interesting one. Okay, pick one to trade, pick one to sign to a long-term contract, and pick one to release at the height of their careers here, okay? This is tough. Ozzie Smith, Steve Carlton, Albert Pujols.
Okay, I think I misunderstood. So one to trade at the height of their careers?
Yeah. One to trade, one to sign long-term, and one you have to release.
Well, okay, from a selfish media point of view, I would release Carlton because he never spoke to us. The long-term contract, it would have to be Albert because he was the greatest Cardinal I ever saw. And then the third one is Ozzie. I'd go Ozzie.
I wonder what an Ozzie haul would bring in. Probably quite a bit.
A lot, yeah.
A Lou Brock story. What's maybe your favorite Bob Gibson story from over the years?
Okay, I got one. Well, I mean, my dad picked me up at age 6 in 1968 to go see Bob Gibson in the first game of the World Series where he struck out 17. And I remember telling my dad, do pitchers always throw like this? He goes, no, they don't. But the best is with Gibson, it's not even baseball related, is one year we did an hour-long special at the Fox. And I was kind of the guest booker, and I was responsible for getting Bob Gibson to Mike Bush. But the Fox is a big place, and Gibson came in the wrong entrance. And I had to walk him all the way around to the other side of the Fox and up these stairs. And he's got bad knees to begin with. And he is cussing me up a storm. You, Frank, I'm going to beat and just, oh my God, he could not have been meaner to me. And I'm kind of smiling underneath my breath because I know that's just the way he is. But eventually we got him sitting down and he gave a great interview. But oh my gosh, was he mad at me.
That's a classic one. And finally here, we got to get, what's your Cardinals season team prediction for 2021? How does it end up?
I think they win the division. I think they win 88 games. And, I don't know what the postseason to look like. If they can avoid the Padres and the Dodgers in the first round, they could win a round in the postseason. Yeah, I think they're going to win 88, and I don't think it's a very good division.
All right, now that we wrapped up with our first guest of the season, we're going to have a little fun and make a few predictions. So we're going to do an over-under type of style. So I'm going to ask Corey a question. I'm going to give him a number. He has to say over or under with a little explanation. So first on tap, Nolan Arenado, April 8th, when he makes his first appearance in St. Louis as a Cardinal, over under 30-second standing ovation from fans.
Well, I mean, they're going to go over, but he's a professional, and I think he'll be a little embarrassed by it. So he'll get in there and get ready to go. I'll tell you this, though. Cole Wong is going to be well over 30 seconds as well with the Brewers, and he's going to acknowledge it, So I think that's going to be a pretty emotional one. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, I'm sure Yadi's going to acknowledge it. He's going to make sure that they give him multiple rounds of ovation. What about Arenado and his home runs? 30 under or over?
So we talked about, I think on past episodes, the Coors effect in Arenado, and it's a little overblown. And listen, I don't think Arenado's going to hit 50 or anything, but 30, I'm fairly confident he's going to hit. He's going to hit 30 home runs. And I think I mentioned this before too. There's data that suggests that when guys leave Colorado, they hit better on the road other places when they don't have to worry about being at that sea level there in Colorado. So I think 30 is a pretty safe bet over for Arenado.
What about 16 wins for Adam Wainwright?
That's a lot. I mean, he goes deep into games, so there's a chance. I won't go over 16, though. That's a lot. That's a lot of wins for a guy who's 39 years old. He's shown he can do it. You never doubt Adam Wainwright. But 16 is pretty high. I think he'll get about 13, 12, I think would be a nice number for Waino. But like I said, he goes deep into games. He'll go at least 5 innings, so he's going to have shots at him.
Exactly. All right, Harrison Bader, he's starting the season on the 10-day IL, but when he returns, do you think he starts more than 80 games?
Well, that's about half the year. And the smart money is yes, because of his just defensive ability and how much Mike Schilt likes him. But like I said earlier, if Justin Williams, I guess, or Austin Dean hits, it's going to be tough to rationalize it. But I think he's going to start more than 80 games. The Cardinals like him too much to do any less than that.
All right, who's your closer this year, Alex Reyes or Jordan Hicks, and do they have 15 or more saves?
Well, it'll be interesting how they work Hicks into here. I think the messaging we get is he might not be thrown into the fire right away in that high pressure situation. I think he's ready for it, honestly, if you're asking me. I think it's going to be Hicks, though. Reyes might get a game or two off the start. I think they go over, what was 15 or 20, you said? I think it's higher than
20.
Yeah, I think it's higher than both those two because the Cardinals added Arenado, but that doesn't mean they're going to be blowing people out every game. So they're going to be counting on their bullpen a lot. It's going to be over 20, and Jordan Hicks is going to be taking those reins at the very most, after a month.
Wins for Cardinals, 90, over or under?
Oh. So it's gonna come down to how badly they can beat up their division, which did not do a whole lot to improve. They got to get wins against the pitch. If whoever here's my bold prediction: whichever NL Central team gets more wins against the Pittsburgh Pirates is going to win the division. So you got to beat up on them. As Mike Claiborne said in an interview Frank did for Sports Plus, the Pirates are building for 2030, so they're going to be pretty terrible. 90's a lot, though. The NL Central is going to, I think, have the least amount of wins for a division winner. Maybe in baseball. Maybe in all of baseball. So I think it's under, but I think the Cardinals win the division.
Okay. How about this? Playoff predictions, MVP, Cy Young.
So I don't mean to piggyback off Frank, but I do think the Cardinals win the division. And I think we see a similar story to what we saw in 2019 when they lost to the Nationals in the NLCS. Because if they come up against the Dodgers or the Padres, I mean, they did things to improve. Arenado's a great first step, but they still look outclassed by those two teams. So I think we're seeing a Cardinals NLCS exit in 2021. And MVP and Cy Young. I was thinking about this. Who did I settle on? Now I can't remember who I settled on. I didn't write it down. Oh, okay. MVP in the National League, I think, is going to be Juan Soto in Washington. One of my favorite guys to watch. MVP in the American League, if they can stay healthy and that lineup's churning, I think Aaron Judge is a good pick with the Yankees. Cy Young. Who I think is going to win the Cy Young? I should have wrote this down. Give me another DeGrom Cy Young. That's kind of the cop-out pick, but he's just so dominant. And then the American League, I'm gonna try and pick a wild card if I can think of one here. In the American League, I think Tyler Glasnow is a dark horse Cy Young candidate with the Rays. He's kind of the stud now. Charlie Morton and Blake Snell are gone. he's got to take those reins. I'll go with that just to have some fun. Tyler Glass now with the and now I will say I didn't put Rookie of the Year on here. I think Dylan Carlson's going to be the Rookie of the Year in the National League. That's why Cardinals mix it in there. I'm very high on that. I'm not a betting man, but I'd put some money on that if I was. Let's go, Ahmad, your turn now. Let's talk about Paul Goldschmidt. You know, Cardinals fans maybe have wanted to see some more power from him since he's been here. Really good numbers. Maybe not as many home runs as they like, because he hit more than 30 this year.
I think he does. I think just he'll have a little bit of relief in this lineup. Like you said, if DeYoung can kind of live up to the expectations. Having Nolan Arenado in that lineup, I think he can breathe a sigh of relief. And he's like, all right, I can just relax and do what I do. So, yes, I do think he gets 30 home runs.
Let's talk Matt Carpenter again. This is really interesting question. Game started for Matt Carpenter, over or under 50?
So 50 you would think is the backup role. 50 is what you would be comfortable with. I think giving him games for Tommy Edman. I don't think Tommy Edman starts 120, 130 games at second base. So I would say right at 50. I don't think over. I think only way he goes over 50 is if he's producing at the plate. Only way he's going over 50 games started.
Carlos Martinez, who we thought was going to be one of the biggest questions coming into camp. Now he's your third starter because of injuries. Is he going to get over 15 wins?
If Carlos is committed to baseball and loves baseball like we've seen before, I think he goes over 15 wins. But if Carlos is more focused on the life outside of baseball, I don't think he gets 15 wins. And I don't think he makes it through an entire season mentally or physically. So I'm knocking on wood, and I'm hopeful that he's engaged. And I think he gets over 15 wins.
This is last year on his contract with the Cardinals. I see pretty much no scenario where he's back next year. So this to see how he does. Dylan Carlson, I just predicted a Rookie of the Year for him. So you're going to get more. Let me go 120 hits here. Is Dylan Carlson going to get over under 120 hits? I think 100 is a safe bet if he's in the lineup there every day. 120 though.
I think 100 is feasible for him. 120. Whew. He's going to have to go on a run to get 120 hits. I mean, if he gets 120, he'll win the Rookie of the Year like you just predicted with ease. So I think he gets 110. I think he goes under 120. I think 100 for sure, 110. I think that's what he gets.
How about Tommy Edman, starter at second base? We know he's got the speed. Are they going to let him loose? Does he get more than 20 steals?
I hope so. I mean, why not? I mean, we've seen the Cardinals be aggressive on the base paths under Mike Schultz, so I don't see why not. He's one of the fastest guys on the team behind Tyler O'Neill, and I think you need to get this guy moving. I mean, especially if he's going to be leadoff, and you have Goldie coming up behind him, Arenado, Tyler O'Neill. Get him on the move. Let's score some runs early.
Wins for the Cardinals, over under 90.
Okay, so I'm going bold. I'll be bold here. I think this team can do 90 easily if Jack Flaherty gets 15 wins like we predicted. I think if he gets 15 wins, this team can win 90 games easily. If he doesn't, I think they're like 83, 84, kind of like you said.
What's your playoff prediction for him then? That would put him in the playoffs. How far are they going?
I'm kind of one of those guys. It's all about momentum. And we all know on paper, the Padres and the Dodgers just look like the favorites to win it all. But, I mean, it's kind of like that's why you play the game. You get out there October, the fans are back in the stadiums at 100% capacity, hopefully. And, you got the juices flowing. The Cardinals, if Michaelis and KK Kim come back, I think this team can make some noise in the postseason. But it's kind of hard to beat a Dodgers team when they have David Price starting the season in the bullpen. So I think not to sing the same tune as you and Frank, but maybe a first-round exit. I think they can possibly win if they don't match up against the Dodgers or the Padres. MVP, AL, I'm going Mike Trout. I love that guy. He's just one of the best baseball players you can ever watch. Cy Young, Garrett Cole. Yankees. I think he'll be fantastic. As far as the NL, I'm singing the same tune as you. As far as the Cy Young goes, Jacob deGrom, that guy. I mean, he just has everything you want as a pitcher. And I'm going Mookie Betts for the NL MVP. Mookie Betts.
That'd be a history-making win if he gets it, to get one in both the American League and National League. I think that's only been done one or maybe two other times, but he's definitely got the team and the talent to do
Exactly.
it. The Dodgers are just loaded right now. It's almost not even fair. Trevor Bauer is like their fifth or sixth best pitcher, which is just insane.
Makes no sense. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching Cardinals Plus right here ahead of opening day, or if you listen on the Sports Plus podcast. We'll be back next week ahead of the home opener. Have a great week watching Cardinals baseball.